I had to come back. I've been practicing ZMT. You'll get it in a little while. Doug's been practicing too. Woo! I'm not going to fill the place with smoke, but just to start us off, I have a reading from Richard Wagame's, a book called Embers. It's a beautiful book. Can you all hear me? No? Okay. I'm just going to let a little bit of smoke go so that we can accompany some beautiful words by Richard Wagame's from the book Embers. And I just want you to visualize this smoke reaching up to the heavens and carrying all of the thoughts and hopes and prayers of all of you. I'm going to put this out so I don't fill you up with smoke here. This lovely book, he writes, "For you today, my friends, I raise sacred smoke. For you who are troubled, confused, doubtful, lonely, afraid, addicted, unwell, bothered, or alone, I raise sacred smoke. For those of you in sorrow, grief, or pain, I raise sacred smoke. For those who work with people, for change, for spiritual evolution, for the upward and outward growth of our common humanity and the well-being of our planet, I raise sacred smoke. For those of you in joy, in the glow of small or great triumphs, who live in love, faith, courage, and respect, I raise sacred smoke. And in the act of all of this, I raise it also for myself." Highly recommend it. It's a lovely book, filled with gems. So today's talk is called Practicing ZMT. I'm still going to make you wait a minute for that one. The act of creation and that which is created are one. It's only the thought that sees a creator and the created. So if we can accept that there's one consciousness that is all there is, then we need to get clear on the rules. We are creative beings. Words have power. We manifest through our intention, our beliefs, and the emotions that set fire to them. Throughout history, it's been known that the word has power, and if anything, that's truer today than ever. The energy of manifestation seems more intense. It's fast. And this makes perfect sense if you think about increasing global population and the exponential power of thought. And I've talked to a lot of other people who also have this feeling of a quickening, of this speeding up in the relationship between intention and manifestation. Call and response happens quickly now. When I was a young adult, the idea that we are much more than we appear made a lot of sense to me. But these ideas weren't really in the mainstream yet, and any talk about anything metaphysical met with either completely blank stares or shared looks that suggested the 60s hadn't been kind to me. Which is extra funny if you consider that in 1969 I had just turned 10. But most of my life I've been observing myself and the world around me to see what I could find out. And there are events that stand out for me to this day. Who remembers the Berlin Wall coming down? Do you remember how that felt? It stood for 28 years, and effective this year, it's actually been down for 28 years. And I remember at the time, I felt something, but I didn't know what the significance of that energetic shift was, only that I felt it. That wall held people apart, and it fostered feelings of separation. And the shift in energy, when it came down, sent its rays out into the world. How could it not? Energetic adjustments like this happen all the time, like little tears in the curtain of our apparent reality, there are moments when we experience the divine so purely and so clearly, when the doubt and cynicism of the masses just falls away, and we know beyond any shadow of a doubt that we are divine beings, that we are spiritual beings. And of course, this is anecdotal. I have no scientific proof. But over the last couple of decades, I've noticed a real increase in the number of people who are waking up, who are taking responsibility for their thoughts, who are willing to engage in a deeper examination of the nature of being. There are more talk shows, there's TED Talks, movies, books, higher education. It's a conversation now. And yet still somehow we manage to forget that we are divine beings, and that what we project onto the field affects everyone. All the activity on the world stage is a manifestation of that which has been imprinted on the field of all possibility, what Ernest Holmes refers to as the law, which he says must and will respond to everyone because the law is no respecter of persons. It is around us in its original state, ready and willing to take form through the impulse of our creative belief. We can use it correctly only as we understand and use it according to its nature. And that whole passage is on page 52 of the Science of Mind textbook if you want to read a little more depth with that one. But imagine the chaos of billions of thoughts and feelings just zinging around the planet like an intergalactic pinball game. Remember, every thought is a prayer, and what we pray with is even more important. Our prayer is more effective when we pray with. So what are we thinking and feeling and projecting day to day? And I look at the chaos or the appearance of chaos in the world today with this in mind. It seems that over time, the human condition has become more and more focused on the tangible, on what appears as real all around us. And we all have feelings about those events. But those feelings are not the truth of who we are. They're indicators, like checks and codes on an instrument panel. They're diagnostic. But over time, we've developed empathy for them. We've given them an identity. And in turn, all of those emotions and feelings have formed a bed, common beds of belief. And the more we publicize and talk about challenging events in the world and in our own lives, the more we fuel those emotions and add fertilizer to the beds of belief. Religious, political, cultural differences, gender biases, sexuality, social mores, fear of lack, feeling unlovable. Any of these sound familiar to you? All of these have created a huge amount of dissension on the planet. And globally, we've developed more and more ways to share this dissension, to share our beliefs and our stories. There's TV, TED Talks, Facebooks, blogs, Instagram, Twitter. Here, tweet this. More and more, stories have come to revolve around experiences of pain and disaster, trauma and drama, and the result is more attention to chaos and less focus on being the light. And thank you, Barbara, by the way, for giving half of my talk in the meditation this morning. There was the mixed in with that, sorry, I derailed myself, but mixed in with all of that disaster and trauma and drama is the belief that somehow this is all external. I don't have anything to do with it. Look what they did over there. That's a mess. You know, when Doug and I were driving here this morning, we passed this big sign that said self-storage units. And I just thought that was funny, and I immediately got this image of these vertical, small storage units like telephone booths, and it's a lineup of people giving their money and going and, shutting them in. It's like, well, what are you doing? I'm storing myself till things improve. Might not be that far off the mark. Ask Superman. It seems to me, though, that this comes down to a matter of fear or faith. Fear is the precursor to anger, dissension, dismay. It generates turbulence in the mind and in the body, which in turn creates an inner climate of chaos. Faith is the knowing that God is love. Love is the ultimate force field of realignment. Love is handling the situation. What we believe in is what we live in and project onto the field or the law. Part of what feeds a sense of separation from Source is these turbulent emotions. We get caught up in our stuff. Do you ever get... Bonnie, you never get caught up in your stuff, do you? Fact is, we all generate turbulence to one degree or another. Something irritates us, something hurt, our inner child gets triggered. But I think that ultimately the goal is to zero out our stuff. Zero mental turbulence. The closer we get to zero mental turbulence, the closer the whole planet will be to global harmony. Does it sound like a leap to any of you, or is there a sense in there? I know that when I choose to foster love and peace, chaos magically and immediately takes at least 3 steps back. So what would happen if we all did it? What if we all practiced ZMT? What would change? Remember, the field does not feel. It doesn't choose between good and bad. It simply responds. We live in a relationship with the field. When we hold our minds in chaos, the field simply adjusts itself to accommodate our apparent wishes. You want some more of that? No problem. It's all good. Conversely, when we choose thoughts that serve instead of just ruminating over our inner world, we invite a greater idea to expand in our lives. When we practice a mindset of love, we express that in our lives as an experience of peace and harmony. So imagine that the divine impulse is pure light, crystalline, sparkly, uplifting, beautiful light. So fine, it's impossible to see the individual particles, but these adamantine particles permeate everything. They are the foundation of all matter and of all light. All life. Light, too. We're born into the physical world in a body, but we're imbued with this light. And as we move through the world, we have to help maintain it. We have to hold it aloft, scatter its rays, not scatter that other stuff. And we do this through our thoughts, our beliefs, and our actions. This is the practice of remembering who and whose we are. It is completely our prerogative to change, or not. I encourage each of us to be mindful. What we are feeling, we experience as our lives, and feed that frequency into the field and affect the lives of others. Whether it's jealousy or joy, pessimism or peace, fear or faith, we feed it into the field. Michelangelo was quoted as having said, "Every block of stone has a statue inside it, and it's the task of the sculptor to discover it." And perhaps it is that, to be human now, to chisel away the layers of belief until we experience a pure sense of being. And the trick is, we don't have to spend our whole lives hammering away with a chisel. We just have to think right. Ernest Holmes said, "Right thought, constantly poured into consciousness, will eventually purify it." I I shared this talk with a friend of mine in Santa Fe. I was really hoping she could come this weekend. And she really had a tough time with that part. She asked me very politely, as she is, to consider how I would feel if someone told me I had to think right. And I had to stop for a minute and try and count the number of times somebody's told me to think right. And I don't have to reach too far to dig up a whole bunch. But our discussion prompted me to consider this idea more deeply. Thinking right. Wow, that suggests there's a wrong. It's not really a wrong, it's just a new improved. When students accept an esoteric teacher, they're agreeing to put down their existing way of thinking so that they can move into a new way of being. And the rigorous teachings demand this. It's believed that only through the death of the ego can the heart fully open to the vastness of God. An everyday example might be, sorry? Oh, I thought you were waving at me. I'm a little crushed now, Bonnie. An everyday example of this might be, let's say, is there anyone here named Betsy? Good, we're safe. Betsy spends all her time complaining about her life. She always gets the short end of the stick. Everything sucks. It's always done to her. Nothing ever goes right, et cetera, et cetera. And observing her negative energy and listening to her continuous declaration about how lousy her life is, most people who know her will have no trouble saying, well, gosh, Betsy, why don't you try thinking more positively and see if your life improves a little bit? They are encouraging her to think right, to have a different outcome. If you were to study mathematics, a teacher would say, here's a formula, you need to learn it in order to have this outcome, to have the equation work out. And this is no different. Science of mind teaches us that if we undertake specific ways of thinking, then predictable things will happen. If you're not happy with your life and you'd like something different to happen, then you might need to modify your beliefs, your thoughts, your actions a little bit to be a little more in alignment with that which you are seeking. When we choose to modify our thinking, we change our lives. And we offer our own correction as a very precious gift to the world. Change is as simple as a recognition and a decision. Simple, she says. I catch myself thinking negative thoughts, ego on a rampage, and sometimes I might have a perfectly good reason for being ticked off. Anybody would tell you the same thing. But the harsh truth is that I'm still in charge of how I respond to that. What I think I'm constantly seeking is balance. And I know that that won't be found by ruminating over how I've been wronged. Balance comes with practice. Peace begets peace. Love begets love. And sometimes, ego wants to hold on. I'll find this sometimes. I'll be just, and then a part of me comes in and says, come on, Liliane, you know better than this. Let's go over here. No, I'm busy being mad. Don't bug me. And it's a really interesting thing to observe in yourself and to watch the ego hold fiercely onto something that all of you knows isn't working. But there's always a mechanism, and it's different every time. And maybe it's the same for you too. But maybe right at that second, a quote that I heard somewhere just pops into my head, and I just start saying it over and over, and all of a sudden the energy has shifted. Or maybe I just notice a really beautiful flower, whatever. There's always a something that shows up to go, oh yeah, here's the little gift, here's the signpost, I can go here now. So I want you to just play along with me for a second. Maybe close your eyes, and we're just going to imagine some pretty things. I want you to imagine yourself in constant awe of the beauty in your life. You just look around and it's everywhere. Imagine as long and hard as you need to until it becomes first nature. Every time you feel your face in a little frown, take a breath, relax your face, smile, and notice that the feeling of density in your mind and your body has just begun to dissipate. Feel the lightness of being in having no financial worries, no heartache, no health issues, whatever constitutes the bulk of your thoughts and feelings will shape your experience. So, how good do you want to feel? Set your mind to the finest, most glorious life that you can imagine. And don't get hung up here on whether or not it's the right one. There is no right one. There's no right or wrong choice. It just has to feed your soul. Feel joy, gratitude, and an unencumbered sense of pure presence. Smell the roses. Notice the spring in your step and the gladness in your heart. Feel your heart. Can you visualize your heart? A glowing ball of light, expanding and growing brighter. Let that fill your soul. This is conscious living. If you look at that idea as a chore or something that's impossible to add to your life, then you might continue to maintain a level of chaos within, without. But if you focus on the idea that this new life is available here and now, the charged rare air of pure potential becomes active immediately. Feel that. As soon as you agree that a new life is available right here and right now, it becomes activated immediately. And then you can continue to feed it at whatever rate you are able. And I think that this part is really, really important. There's a lot of ideas floating around that suggest, well, if that's happening in your life, you're not doing it right. Sorry, you suck. And it's not about that at all. Wherever you are right now is perfect. You are a beautiful and divine and perfect example of the divine, expression of the divine. There's no judgment, no self-talk about how you could do better. Every time you choose to ramp up, you're giving a gift to the world. And if you can't ramp up one day for whatever reason, things stay the same. So if you choose to, life gets better. There's only good and more good, not good, yay, did it, and bad, oh dear, I didn't make it today. It's just good and more good. By putting your attention on a life in harmony, you diminish the amount of turbulence that you project outwards. It's a little bit like improving your fuel emissions. And the more evidence of peace and harmony will be apparent in your life and in the world around you. Peace within, peace without. It's been spoken of in many times in many ways. So there's about 7.5 billion people on this planet. What if just half of them said, okay, let's try it? I mean, really, what's the harm? The worst case scenario is I'm going to think happier thoughts for a little while. Ooh. Guess that's not so bad. But if the best case scenario happens, we will alter the trajectory of a world seemingly gone mad. And we'll evolve into the higher beings that we started out as before we thought ourselves out of it. Just imagine everyone practicing ZMT. Look, Doug's practicing it over there. He's even got the t-shirt. In fact, we should make t-shirts. Thank you.